Farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
And welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. It is Tuesdays with Lyndsey. It is December 10th, if you can believe it. That's right. 15 days till Christmas, everybody. Better get shopping. Are you ready? I am not. I will get ready next week, I think. But our tree did go up, and we always have a real tree. I know that my 7-year-old wants to put it up as early as possible, but frankly, I don't want it to be brown and dropping its needles everywhere by Christmas, and so we only put it up this past weekend. The weather outside, as they say, is frightful, and so we'll stay inside with our Christmas lights, our hot cocoa, and enjoy the festive season. All right, we've got a great show lined up for you today. I'm leaning on plenty of my colleagues today to get this show done, but we've just got so much fantastic content, so I've included it here. So you're going to hear on today's show from Amber Bell in conversation with Dr. Louis-Pierre Comeau of AAFC. They're going to talk about the Soil Biome project that Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada is working on, which is super cool. You'll also hear from Bill Prybylski. He's the new president of APAS. That's the Agriculture Producers Association of Saskatchewan. Shaun Haney spoke with him last week, just after he had been voted in as the new president. So we'll hear from Bill and the plans there for APAS. I've also pulled a clip with Ken Currah and Mike Palmier. They joined me for the Agronomists last week to talk about the people side of the agronomy business. And this is one that both are incredibly passionate about. And it's really important to think about not just all those agronomic questions, but of course the person that you're dealing with, the person who's making, the management decisions, the person who's making the purchase decisions. Frankly, there's a lot to navigate there. There's, driving change, there's managing risk, there's building trust. All of those things are really important. So last week's episode of The Agronomists featured Ken Currah and Mike Palmier discussing that. So I pulled out some of the key clips from that for today's show. And then to round out the show, I've got some news. There's plenty to talk about. We've got, of course, some trouble brewing in the biofuels industry. A lot of unknowns there on the U.S. side, having an impact on the Canadian side as well. We've also got a bit of a Trump bump for Trudeau, if you can believe it. And we've got some news, some scholarships available that if you've got someone in post-secondary education in your life, we've got some details on where they may apply for a $2,500 scholarship. All right, as always, give us a follow on social media or give us a call, 1-855-776-6147 if you've got any feedback on today's show or anything we cover here on RealAg Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more right after this.
We're at the Farm Management Canada meeting, AgX. Joining us right now is Stuart Person with MMP, board member at Farm Management Canada. What are some of the cool things that Farm Management Canada does?
So we do some educational work around financial literacy, succession planning, risk management planning as well. A lot of our role is to promoting the concept of, for example, risk management planning. Getting out and explaining to people the importance of risk management planning and what it can do for you and what are all the benefits to doing that. In those sessions, we're not going to do a risk management plan for you because every farm in Canada, their risk management plan is going to look something different. Our role is more on promoting the concepts and getting people into that mindset that this is important and I should be doing this. Risk management is really putting a plan in place to say, how do I deal with all these things that I can't control? Producers who do a really good job of business planning and have a really good risk management plan in place, they understand that and they realize they have a good backstop in place. Their confidence level is a lot higher in terms of making investment decisions.
Here's what Wheat Pete's Word on RealAgriculture.com is all about in under 30 seconds.
It's wheat time. I love wheat time. I love wheat. Get that sulfur on. Get that seeding rate right. Get that nitrogen on your wheat right. Get that protein. Know your variety. Know when you need to put fungicides on. Pick your product. Pick your rate. Do the right job. Get this wheat crop right. Have a nice day. Grow amazing wheat.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Tuesday, December 10th, if you can believe it. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by, well, some pretty fantastic pre-seed burn-down products from New Farm. Manage weeds early in your canola, cereals, and pulses with Conquer, Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO, powered by Duplisan technology, advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed burn-down from New Farm. As promised, we hop now to Shaun Haney's conversation with Bill Prybylski. He's the brand new president of APAS.
And we're joined right now by the brand new incoming, well, as of this week, incoming president of APAS, which is a general farm organization in Saskatchewan. It is Bill Prybylski. Bill, how are we doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, hey, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, good stuff. Bill, tell us where do you farm?
I farm just about 20 miles west of Yorkton on the east side of the province. Farm here with my brother, my son, and a couple nephews, and we have a mixed operations. We grow cereals, oilseeds, pulses, and then we run some commercial cows.
And you've been heavily involved in APAS for quite some time. You've been vice president for the past 6 years. What is it about being president of APAS that what excites you about it? What's the opportunity?
Well, for me, the biggest opportunity is to be able to have some influence on ag policy. We know that a lot of times our voice maybe isn't heard as loudly as we would like it to be. So, I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to sit down with the people that are making the decisions that affect our farms and trying to talk them through from a farmer's perspective what it is that policy, how it's affecting farmers and what we need to see going forward. So, yeah, just that ability to have some influence on farm policy, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Bill, what are some of the policies that you feel are really important that need to be pushed and talked more about in not only rural circles, but maybe in places like Saskatchewan and Regina as well?
Sure. Well, I guess as long as farmers have been growing grain in Saskatchewan, we've been fighting with the railroads, and that struggle continues. So, there's some things like the rail carbon surcharge that we certainly would like to see eliminated. We feel it's completely unfair to producers to be paying that carbon tax on behalf of the railroads. The MRE, the maximum revenue entitlement that the railroads use to calculate their freight rates, we need to see that remain. That's really the only protection farmers have from escalating freight rates because of the lack of competition. So we need to make sure that MRE stays in place. And then there's things like grain contracts. We've seen in the past few years how farmers have been affected detrimentally by unfair grain contracts. We're certainly looking forward to the opportunity to have some discussion on making those grain contracts fair. And then the livestock industry right now. Things are looking a little rosier in the livestock industry, but for many years it hasn't been that way. It's been a struggle. So we would like to see some changes to some of the programming to better reflect the needs of livestock producers in the province.
Yeah, there's definitely no shortage of issues. In the case of the railways, there always is this rub. As you look across the grain supply chain, what needs to happen? Is it a case there needs to be more regulation or less regulation? Like, what would make an organization like APAS feel that you're moving in the right direction?
I think just the recognition that the movement of grain is absolutely essential, not only for producers, but for the province's economy, for the country, and, really for the world, that it's imperative that our grain gets to where it needs to be in a timely manner. Obviously, food security has been a big issue over the past several years, and any disruptions in that supply chain are seriously threatening that food security. So I think just the recognition that the movement of grain is absolutely essential, and I think the governments and the railroads and the unions need to recognize that and do whatever steps are necessary and use whatever tools they have available to ensure that grain moves in a timely manner.
Yeah. Farm profitability is something that we've been hearing a lot about from audience members at RealAgriculture.com. 25s, there's some slimmer margins out there. There's a lot of concern across farm country in Saskatchewan and other provinces and into the U.S. as well. The farm economy has got some tougher times right now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, we recognize that we've come through a couple of pretty good years with some higher commodity prices, and as those prices have come back down, our input costs have certainly not come down much, if any, and certainly not at the same rate as our commodity prices have. So there's going to be some struggles. Absolutely, higher interest rates, high fertilizer prices, fuel prices, and taxes have certainly been a thorn in the side of producers for many, many years, and will continue to be so. So, I think it's very imperative that we as an organization continue to press for things like the removal of the GST from our heating gases used for heating barns and the drying grain and the rail freight issues that we've talked about. That it's really important that we continue to strive for fairness in those systems.
How concerned are you about what we could see out of an incoming Trump administration when you hear about 25% tariffs and things like that? Does that strike a chord at all in terms of some of you had your AGM this week and some of the hallway discussions?
Absolutely. That was definitely a topic of discussion in the hallways and the coffee breaks, that there's concern out there, absolutely, that the 25% tariff on exports to the States, when we know that the amount of business that we do with the States, the amount of commodities that we ship over there, a 25% tariff would be absolutely devastating to the ag economy in this province. We know that we rely very heavily on exports in the ag sector, and anything like that, supply chain issues or tariffs would be devastating. So we're hopeful that there'll be some sort of a solution before that comes to fruition, but we definitely have to be vigilant on it and do what we can and encourage our federal government to do what they can to avoid that.
And the other thing I think would be definitely from a policy perspective kind of top of mind for a lot of producers in Saskatchewan is making sure that we've got up-to-date, modernized business risk management programs too, right? And so that farmers have the tools to manage through some of these kind of tougher times we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, at APAS, we're in the process of putting together a task force to look at the BRM programs. We know that the existing program is set to expire in March of 2028, so we're going to start right away looking at all those programs and trying to come up with recommendations as to how the programs can be improved upon. Particularly for the livestock industry, there's been recognition, I think, for many years that there's deficiencies in those programs for the livestock producers. So we need to ensure that there's adequate protection and that the programs are responsive. We've seen in the past where we're in drought situations where there is funding there, but the time that it takes to access those fundings have been somewhat problematic and a bit of a sore spot with producers in that they've been able to access the funds, but by the time they get the funds, a lot of the financial damage has already been done.
Bill, want to say again, congratulations to you. You've got a lot of days on the road in front of you, because I know they keep the APAS president very busy, and I'm sure you're well aware of that. So you got to try to balance, taking care of everything at home on the home farm, plus being responsible for the care of APAS and its members. So want to wish you all the best, and I'm sure we're going to get lots of chance to talk going forward. And have yourself a Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. And looking forward to sitting down with you and talking about the issues that's relevant to our producers in the province. And thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you and your family as well.
We are going to take a quick break here on RealAg Radio, and I'll be back with more right after this.
Lima Grain Cereal Seed brings you best-in-class performance for winter and spring wheat, including 12 national wheat yield contest winners in 2024. With the most extensive coaxium portfolio and over 15 top-performing varieties, Lima Grain delivers superior genetics to control grassy weeds when you need it, fall or spring. Boost your yield potential today. Visit limagraincerealseeds.com or call your LCS Regional Commercial Manager for more info.
What's next doesn't happen by accident, doesn't happen by chance.
What's next happens when experience meets expertise, when data meets dollars, and when steel meets earth.
What's next happens when the promising work of Pioneer's state-of-the-art research centers meets the unsparing challenges of more than 17,000 on-farm trials.
Our ultimate goal is to bring the next seed breakthrough to your field.
Because Pioneer isn't just our name.
It's our mission. Pioneer.
What's next
happens here.
I'm Lyndsey Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lyndsey Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. We are calling all Montana, Dakotas, and northern Minnesota growers. The new seed omega-3 canola production system can help you unlock a guaranteed path to market with attractive premium opportunities, first-in-class agronomy support, and free on-farm pickup after harvest. To learn more, visit omega3canola.com. That's omega, the number 3, canola.com. All right, in celebration of World Soil Day that happened last week, we've got this discussion on the Soil Biome project. So you'll hear from Dr. Louis-Pierre Comeau of AAFC and my colleague out of Alberta, Amber Bell, on this discussion of what exactly is the Soil Biome project.
We're talking today with Dr. Louis-Pierre Comeau of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So welcome. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Amber.
And I had news that you're leading the Canadian Soil Biome Survey. Is that correct?
I'm leading it with Dr. Frank Stefani from Ontario and AFC Ontario. Both of us are leading.
Great. So tell me a little bit about this project. What exactly is it?
This project, compared to a plot experiment, is consisting of a survey where we are collecting soil sample all across Atlantic Canada, Ontario, and Quebec, and hopefully all across the country soon, where we go in forest, agricultural, wetland, and different land use, and we collect soil samples and analyze everything that is possible with all the new technologies.
Right, and what exactly are you guys looking for in that?
We are looking in different parameters, and for me particularly, I'm looking for the correlation between different organisms and increase in soil carbon.
What are some of the ones you're finding, and how long have you been doing this for?
We started before COVID in Atlantic Canada. So we have been about 6 years now doing that. We finished the first round of sampling with more than 500 points in Atlantic Canada and other 500 points in Ontario and Quebec. And now we are analyzing the data and processing all the results.
Right. And has there been anything surprising that you've seen so far out of it?
Yeah, very strong relationship with microbial abundance, land use intensities, and carbon storage. Much stronger than what we were expecting.
One of the big words that I've heard, I work a lot with cattle producers, and one of the big things that they get excited about is mycorrhizal fungi. So are you seeing mycorrhizal fungi across, all different aspects of agriculture, or where are you seeing it most?
For a pasture and some agricultural land, yes, we have a specialist, Dr. Comeau in RAGS, that is working only on that, on all the samples that were collected. And we analyze different types of mycorrhizas. There's a lot of different types. And again, with the mycorrhiza, we see a positive links between the mycorrhizas and the soil organic matter building or soil carbon storage.
What do those links look like?
It's pretty much a linear increase. The more you have, the greater you are. You will have at the end for carbon sequestrations. And there's also parasitic, sometimes organisms like mycorrhizas, and those ones are negatively correlated with the carbon storage. So the good organisms promote an increase in soil organic storage and soil carbon sequestrations, and the ones that are more parasitic or more nefarious, they are causing a decrease in storage.
Interesting. And you guys are looking at different agricultural practices as a
land use management intensities and management practice, yes.
That's amazing. Okay, what inspired it?
We wanted to look a little bit of everything, not only specifically crops or a group of crops. So that's why we have different type of forests, different type of pastures, different management in agriculture. So we are sampling randomly a little bit of everything to have a good idea of everything that we have there currently. And we hope that we will go at exact same spot in 10 years and every 10 years to monitor the change through times due to global warmings and land use change.
That's great. And as this data is amalgamated, what's the plan with it? Where will it sit?
Right now is sitting at the CSBO of Canada, repositories where all the data are at Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and they are communicating to the general public, to farmers, as much as we can, and they will become available at some point in the future. For everybody. But everybody can see our results generally for everything that we are finding.
As it's going. And where do you hope it goes? Like, what are you planning to have this used for?
We are publishing scientific papers, and we have repositories online that at some point different scientists can work on and find new findings with all the data that we have, and in the future build on adding more data to what is it right now.
That's incredible. There's been so much talk about the need for a more in-depth soil health database, or a way to actually look at it across the spectrum rather than, like you said, just in focus areas. So that's really exciting. And when can people get a hold of some of this data, or when can we expect to see results?
Well, we already have results, and we already presented some results, and we go to grower meetings and scientific meetings and talking to the media to share all the results that we are having right now. We are more than 20 scientists working on that, and each scientist in a specific field is going to share all the results related to their fields to everybody that is possible.
That's incredible. Well, I'm really excited about your work. I love bugs, but I know it's not really bugs necessarily in the soil, but I love the ecosystem there. So keep up the great work. And that was Dr. Louis-Pierre Comeau of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada.
All right. Thank you to Amber and to Louis-Pierre for that interview. Yes, of course, it was World Soil Day last week. I have to tell you, I quite enjoy all the different, day ofs. I'm pretty sure most of them are made up. That's okay. It's totally fine to choose a day. And if you've made one up, let me know. I'd love to celebrate with you. If it's like there's a World Coffee Day, there's a World Farm Dog Day, why not? Right? Okay. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to be back with a clip from the Agronomists from 2 weeks ago with Ken Currah and Mike Palmier. We're going to talk about the people side of agronomy.
Do you want to take your crop yield to the next level? Many factors contribute to achieving a successful harvest, but the right fertility plan is key. BioK is the best potassium source in agriculture today and a critical component for both plant and soil health. It doesn't end with starter. With every pass across the field, you can spoon-feed your crop. To learn more, contact a sales representative with Nature's in the U.S. and Alpine in Canada.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup to weed control, field trial results, and the latest yield strategies. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF. Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast in your favorite podcast app. Check out the latest Corn School episode today.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. A reminder that the next generation of Brandt U-Trough augers is here. They can move up to 9,000 bushels per hour, even in the harshest conditions. Visit your local Brandt dealer today. All right, as promised, I've pulled a few of the clips from the Agronomists from last week, not yesterday, it's the week before, with Ken Currah of BASF and Mike Palmier of MMP Ag Intellect, based out of Saskatchewan. We had a fantastic discussion about the people side of agronomy, because let's face it, yes, you need to know your products, your seed, your rates, etc., but you also have to deal with multiple types of customers, size of customers, etc., and navigating all of that really is a huge part of the job. So here's part of my conversation with Ken and Mike. And so, Ken, maybe I'll start with you. Do you have a personal philosophy about your people management skills?
Well, I think ultimately, if I could just pin down a couple of things, I think I've learned over the course of my career, which now I think I'm going into year 26 of actually making recommendations to farmers. Started back in 2000 as far as in a crop input sales role. And I think I've learned over the years that, whether we're dispensing advice or actually selling product along with that advice and positioning agronomic products on the farm, we're in the business of positioning peace of mind, right? I think that's the first thing that comes to me. And the other thing is we're going to get into it in a bit here, but the personality profiling and adapting different personalities. The old saying, opposites attract. I think opposites just find a way to communicate with each other and make it work. And it takes two to tango, right? So yeah, there's a way to make it work with everybody.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly, Ken shares Hanover area 90 centimeters over the weekend. I don't know what that is in inches. It sounds like a lot. And Warren has joined us. Hello, Warren. 90 centimeters. I think that's like almost how tall I am. Anyway, something like that. Okay. So Mike, similar question. How do you sort of broach the people side of the business, especially as an independent?
Yeah, as an independent, I think it's always interesting because when you start taking on, say you take on a new client, there's a feel and out process that you have to do and to understand who they are and how they make decisions. I'd say one of the things that I'm really careful with right off the bat is try not to change too many things, because we can have our hands all over that business and tell them that they're doing all these things completely wrong and you have it right. But I think it's really important to kind of meet them on their level and get a feeling for their decision making and how they've come, up with the decisions to have these agronomic practices. So I think that's really, really important. And just to understand how they make those decisions and how, there will be those guys that are very emotional and very make very emotionally based decisions. And there are other guys that just take a long time. And so you just got to seed some ideas with those people and just give them some time. Even if you don't think they actually listen to you, if you just be patient with those slow burners, then they'll come back to you with questions, right? They might turn you off right off the bat, but they'll be back. So I think that's the main thing for me with a new client, is just to be really patient and understand their operation first.
Mm-hmm. Now, for both of you, Ken, I'll start with you. What was one of the best lessons you learned early on the people side?
Well, there's quite a few of them, but I think one of the best lessons, and Mike actually alluded to it, is there's some people out there that as decision makers, as customers, they might seem really, really slow to get themselves to where you want them to be. And I think it takes time to learn their operation, and then the next step is learn how they make a decision and who's involved on the farm in making the decision, right? I'm in the pesticide, the crop protection business now. So, I mean, there's a lot of people on some operations that are involved in making that decision, right? Who drives the sprayer, who runs the chemical warehouse. It's not just the person buying or the people selling the product, right? So, there's a big picture involved in that decision making. And I think one of the, to get back to the lesson aspect was, I had one instance back when I was in the seed business where customer was moving very slowly, even though we had laid down an adequate multi-year foundation of proof. But man, the loyalty afterwards, right? And the willingness for them to understand any challenges we came across in our business relationship. And that customer type, that was a real learning experience for me. There wasn't just one of them, there were several. They were a customer type that in the past, in my younger days, I'd lost patience with a little bit. You kind of give up too soon. But wow, it's a very rewarding relationship when you get there. There's a lot of loyalty, but you also have to understand that they're prone to buyer's remorse. If you can kind of get through that first experience, taking your advice or utilizing your product, fantastic customers to have, because it's just such a rewarding relationship. Not just in terms of the business, but just the ability to learn from a farmer customer how it actually works for them.
Pete's got a great question, and I should have thought of this. Anyway, no, it's a good one. So, question, why has agribusiness, in general terms, moved away from face-to-face interactions? If you're not one of the biggest growers, you only get electronic communication. Pete, electronic is pretty good. Anyway, I'm just going to throw that out there. But leaping off from that, because I think it is a really great point, is how we do business, of course. And Mike, I'll go to you on this one. Do you shift your communication style to the customer that you're dealing with? Do they still value mostly face-to-face, or do you adapt sort of your way of doing business depending on what the client is really comfortable with or wants?
I think you always have to customize things for what the customer's looking for. You could call that, even partly a bit of a learning that came through the COVID age. But, what I think Peter's discussing is the fact that it probably hasn't gone far enough back to face-to-face once we came out of that. But, for us to understand what everybody's comfortable and what time allows and where everybody is, how busy they are and what type of season it is, I think is really important. Just speaking about that a little bit, we do a lot of work with like monitors, controllers, prescriptions, that kind of stuff. One of the forms of communication that's actually really helped us with that, even with the older generation, is FaceTime. Little things like that to be able to see exactly what they're doing on the screen. So I think, there's a lot of solutions and tools that electronics and all that can solve for us. But really, at the end of the day, I just find our business to be very people dealing with people. So the face-to-face interaction is definitely something that we don't want to lose.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Mark shares, and this is a wonderful way to put it. Mark, it's almost like you write every once in a while. He does. Anyway, there are big operators out there who take a lot of time and energy, but the little guy's operation is just as important to him. The most important customer is the one who's in front of me, which I love the way that's put. And I think, if we all had unlimited time in a day, that would be an easy thing to do. But of course, everyone has to make some hard decisions on how they spend their time. But Ken, in framing it from the perspective of, the number of acres you're perhaps working with a grower on, how do you make sure that, the smaller scale grower still gets the value versus, someone who's making decisions on many more acres?
Yeah, so first of all, I love Mark's last sentence, right? I mean, the most important customer is the one that you're communicating with right here, right now. And I think we have to remember there's so many different ways we can communicate with customers. Obviously the online thing and whether it's FaceTime or Zoom or whatever really took off because of the pandemic. But we've learned, with our phones are such a powerful device now, right? We have different means of communicating with customers, and I think it comes down to just figuring out with every customer what's the right mix for communications, right? If it's we have customers. I have customers that, we text 90% of the time. We do face-to-face when it's serious business, or we're, trying to work through planning or something like that. But texts and pictures are sure a huge help when it comes to troubleshooting, etc. As far as servicing this entire array of customers, part of my job is to work with crop inputs retailers, our reseller network, and I think it's important for them to look at their customer base and then manage their field team accordingly in terms of making sure they get reach. I think that's really critical. It doesn't just come down to people power and human capital, but how can you be efficient about it too? I think is also important. There are some growers that get a lot out of winter grower meetings. There are some growers that get nothing out of winter grower meetings, right? There are others that are willing to hop on a Zoom meeting or a webinar and try to learn something for 30 to 60 minutes, and then there are some that want no part of it, right? So it's just comes down to how do we approach our customer base efficiently, and then how do we allocate the human capital and then our time.
Mm-hmm. Mike, did you want to add to that thought?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Yeah. So, methods of communication I find really intriguing, because I know that's something that we're working on within our organization, is to understand when we need to even have a phone call, a face-to-face versus a text message, because we're in the business of constantly giving recommendations and insights off of what we see in the field. So I find the form of communication is really, really important for us. Because if we want to have a nuanced conversation with our customers, texts are great, but they're also very, very passive communication. And so if we make a recommendation and it goes out on a text, the customer comes back to us and says, well, I don't have time for that. We need to have a phone call, and we always should have phone calls. It's almost to the point, actually, with us, with our recommendations and our communication, where I'd almost rather not even have the ability to text, just because the nuances of the conversation get lost, right? The understanding back and forth and the feeling out of a recommendation. So I that's something that we're really focused on, is making sure that we can be clearly communicating with our customer, have balanced conversations. If they aren't necessarily on side with our recommendation, to understand why that is and find some middle ground. And the only way to do that, in my opinion, is a good old-fashioned phone call or face-to-face communication. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, Warren does send out their text messages, leave a paper trail. Now, and so to that end, I agree that when you're hashing out sort of the back and forth of the why, or if someone's, got a hang up, like, really you do have to talk that through, because you can, your voice inflection, maybe if it's in person, you got body language that helps as well, and you can come to something. But it is nice for some things when you've got a text to go back to, if it's a step-by-step instruction, or if it's something like that, it's nice to have something to look back at and say, okay, but let's all remember that a thumbs up to a grain contract discussion may be construed as a yes. Mike, how do you handle the loyalty question as far as that long term?
Yeah, if you're talking about if it is different than 15 years ago, I don't really find that. I feel like, and part of that, I guess, would be maybe my career shift, because I went from retail to independent agronomy, which is a bit of a change on my end. But I feel like more and more in our space that our farms need a filter. They need somebody to be able to disseminate information and be able to bring that properly to them with recommendations that are sound for our geography and our crops and our individual customers. There's a lot of technologies and specific products coming down the line that are being at times a bit force-fed to our customers, and they need really a lot of help to be able to understand those and find some real value through insights, and also how to implement that properly on their farm. So I find within our space that the loyalty is quite strong, but the main thing on the loyalty side is you need to show value, right? There's a lot of, if you show a lot of value on those farms, there's going to be all kinds of loyalty. And Ken had a really good point as far as those customers that are difficult to get, but then when you get them, that they stay for a long time. I've seen lots of those throughout my career, and The ones you got to really worry about are the ones that you pick up very, very quickly, because those are the guys that are the more likely to be able to shift over and move on again. As far as loyalty goes, I don't know. I haven't noticed a difference over the last 15 years within my career.
Mm-hmm. Ken, you've shifted gears, still within the same space, but sort of within the product space. Do you notice a significant, or have you noticed a significant difference on the shifting landscape as far as loyalty, or does it come down to sort of personality type?
No, I'm total agreement with Mike on this one, and I'm going to disagree with Johnson. Probably not for the last time. And I was kind of surprised when I joined BSF and we get to see that grower transactional data, just how little movement there was around between suppliers. And, so the term that comes to mind is price to value, right? That's the huge component of loyalty is, it's more than just this number that's on the invoice, right? Can that supplier get the fertilizer to you on time? Do they answer the phone when you need help, whether it's agronomic advice? Common question I get, confirmation on rates or mixing orders, right? Mm-hmm. Hugely important question. I mean, rate obviously is important for efficacy and crop tolerance. Mixing order is important for maintaining your sanity on the 87th hour of the week for the average farmer or applicator, right? So, so many things come along with the price of a product, right? The sound advice that comes with it, the ability to service it, et cetera, et cetera. So actually, I'm kind of surprised. Yeah, there's a little bit of movement around as customers move here and there for certain components of their business. I think one of the side effects of, consolidation in farming for the last 2 decades, the big have gotten bigger and the small and the medium have been shaken out a bit here. I think the suppliers, whether it's farm equipment or crop inputs or whoever, when they're dealing with bigger players and bigger customers now, they're pretty sharp at knowing how to retain those customers and how to service those customers and deal with them, because you just can't have that type of volatility in your business, right? You can't have, 3 or 4 members of your top 20 changing hands every year and then trying to reacquire them elsewhere.
All right, we're going to end it there. Fascinating discussion. Thank you to Ken and to Mike for that one. You can, of course, check out the entire episode, realagriculture.com/agronomists. You can also find it on our YouTube channel. It's a really good one. I highly recommend listening to the whole thing. And, of course, if you've got feedback, zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or you can call that RealAg listener line, 1-855-776-6147. All right, we're going to take a break and head to our last segment for today's show right after this.
This is your last call to save big on DeKalb canola. How big? Save up to $40 per bag big. On now until December 13th, save on the highest yielding DeKalb hybrid, DK401TL. Visit your local seed retailer or DeKalbRewards.ca today and get ahead of your 2025 to-do list with big savings on seed. We're going to be your #1 canola seed. Just watch us.
If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters, and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. For farmers, trust is everything. Genesis Fertilizers is making real progress toward providing reliable, locally produced fertilizer. Join the ownership group and protect your bottom line. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility. All right, as promised, we're going to take a stab at the news here. I know, not my favorite thing to do. I just don't feel like I'm that good at it. But there are several things happening right now that I figure we should talk about here on this Tuesday, get you caught up for the news of the week. We're going to start with some Canada-US stuff, and then we'll move to some local Canadian news at the end. So to kick it all off, certainly if you're following along on the news, President-elect Donald Trump trolling apparently Canada, and referred to Governor Justin Trudeau. Now, this all has to do with Trump having alluded to subsidizing Canada and Mexico and basically inferring that Canada should become the 51st state. What we make of it all, I'm not entirely sure, but what we do know is the Nanos poll that came out after the Mar-a-Lago visit between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump did actually work in Trudeau's favor. So the so-called Trump bump, if you will, definitely Canadians, through this Nanos poll, Canadians did improve their view of how well Justin Trudeau could deal with Trump based on that visit and the news that came out of that. So make of that what you will. If you did check out last Friday's bonus segment for this show here, RealAg Radio, it is on our YouTube channel, or you can find it on RealAgriculture.com. The panel, so myself, Calvin Hepner, Shaun Haney, we all had a go at sort of what we think the personality breakdown might end up looking like. Up until this Mar-a-Lago visit, though, most people were identifying that Pierre Poilievre would be the better person to sit across the table from Trump. That, according to the Nanos poll, that still does exist as far as who the better person may be. However, Trudeau, for the first time in a long time, actually got a bit of a bump in the polls as far as who Canadians think is best to deal with Donald Trump as the leader of Canada. So there you go. We know that Trump is going to be definitely a strong leader as far as America first. We know that the threat of 25% tariffs is still on the table. And we also know that Canada essentially, at least for the foreseeable future, has Trudeau at the helm, and we are going to have to navigate what that all means, of course, for that relationship. Now, on that note, on those 25% tariffs, we did talk about it on this show. There are, of course, several U.S. and Canadian industries that are highly integrated. The auto sector comes to mind, but when it comes to agriculture, there are several as well. So if we think about the hog sector, quite a few of the piglets come out of Canada and go down to the U.S. Our cattle industries are highly integrated, but the oil industry, so the vegetable oil industry, the canola industry specifically, is one of those ones that is also a huge supplier of U.S. canola oil for the biofuel industry. And we did see, as of right now, there's a bit of an argument going on. It depends which story you read, as to whether or not Joe Biden will actually move through the 45Z part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which this is what outlines how biofuel producers are going to be credited for the biofuel that they produce. We're waiting to hear if anything that is not U.S. origin used as feedstock is going to essentially be dropped out of what qualifies for the credit, for the processor's credit. So what does that all actually mean? Well, we did hear from the U.S. counterparts to COPA, so the Canadian Oilseed Processors Association. You heard Chris Vervaet on this show not that long ago talking about the potential impact of 45Z. So, of course, the Canadian canola industry is concerned about how this 45Z rule actually ends up playing out, whether or not it will even be set for before Joe Biden ends his term in late January. But the U.S. counterparts to COPA have come out to say that they, of course, value the Canadian system that supplies canola for the biofuel industry. Now, this is perhaps, somewhat controversial depending on which circles you run in. But, it is one of the few things we've seen in the last little while that comes from the U.S. side that is really pointing out that, there are valuable imports into the U.S. from other countries like Canada that are, a similar system. They're might be freight advantages. It is part of how some of these biofuel refineries have made their business models. It includes potentially a large part of either canola crush or canola oil coming out of Canada for these. Now, so 45Z, we are still waiting to find out exactly what the words will be that will outline the feedstock component of it. Either way, there is a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty, of course, can lead to volatility. This, of course, right now is sort of the wrong kind. And we heard from Jody Lawrence earlier on this show about sort of maybe that wrong kind of uncertainty. It's not the kind that drives prices up. It's the kind that drives prices down. So there you go. So that definitely is on our radar as well. We're working on a couple interviews to see if we can get some insight into whether or not we will see the final wording on 45Z for those feedstocks and what impact it may have not only on the Canadian canola industry, but of course the U.S. counterparts as well. Coming closer to home, you may have seen that Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has set a date for when we will see the fall economic statement. That date is Monday, December 16th. Technically still fall, everybody. So we're going to put that one out there. Winter does not arrive until December 21st. Now, we are hearing, though, that while this fall economic statement is coming, it really is coming at the very tail end of the House sitting before the House does rise, before the holiday break. That's a solid month that Parliament does not sit. Not saying that Parliament's been doing a heck of a lot with the filibuster over the privilege motion, etc. However, we have been waiting to see this fall economic statement from Freeland. Many people have already alluded to the fact that the federal government has blasted way past the guardrails it put in place as far as the amount of debt it would rack up ahead of any sort of budget. And it does sound like there may be some friction between Freeland and Trudeau based on this fall economic statement and this latest GST holiday and the potential of those checks going out to individuals in the new year. So we have certainly here at RealAg sort of pointed out that this becomes an incredibly expensive, this GST holiday. It's complicated. It doesn't necessarily add up to a lot per household, but it certainly does add up to a significant amount that the government either gives up or has to pay out. And so we will see, we will be waiting to see what is included in that fall economic statement. It is sort of, kind of in some ways that mini budget. And this, won't get a ton of time, obviously, to be debated in the House just ahead of the holiday season. But that's likely by design, to be entirely honest, but don't worry, we'll be following along as well. So watch for that. That's Monday. We are set to receive the fall economic statement from Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Also staying close to home, if you have a young person in your life who's involved in agriculture, is curious about marketing, the CABIF scholarship is up for applications. And so this is one that near and dear to the Real Agriculture community's heart. And it is a significant one that can make a big difference in the life of a young person who's pursuing not just agriculture, but even just agriculture adjacent post-secondary study. So for those who are not aware, CABIF is the Canadian Agribusiness Education Foundation, and each year it awards up to seven $2,500 scholarships through this fund. Any student entering or pursuing an agriculture-related program at a Canadian college, university, or apprenticeship, that's in the trades, is eligible to apply. So I have to say, this is one of the things that, from my perspective, when I was doing my university education, one of the things that I was just blown away by was how many opportunities there are for young people to potentially leverage scholarship dollars, grants, bursaries, etc. And realistically, it comes down to awareness that they're even available and the wherewithal to, of course, apply. And if you've got that young person pursuing that post-secondary education and they are at all keen to apply to some of these, I promise you there are so many available out there, and some of them sometimes don't get claimed. So it's always worth applying. So for those who may be interested in the CABIF scholarship, the deadline to apply is April 30th, 2025, and you can head on over to www.cabif, that's CABEF.org. Well, that does it for me today here. Your Tuesdays with Lyndsey on RealAg Radio. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back actually Thursday with the Farmer Rapid Fire. So for this week and next, I'm going to be covering the Farmer Rapid Fire for Shaun Haney while he's busy traveling here, there, and everywhere. So I love the Farmer Rapid Fire. I'm excited and look forward to doing that. So I will talk to you on Thursday and of course be back for the issues panel on Friday as well. If from today's show or frankly any of the other coverage we do here on RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com, you can always get in touch. My email's lsmith@RealAgriculture.com, or you can call that listener line 1-855-776-6147. And of course, please follow us across social media. We're on YouTube, Facebook, X, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, we're there. All right, have a wonderful Tuesday. Cheers, everybody.